Fire crews across the country are bracing for a return to dangerous fire conditions as the scale of the bushfire disaster so far starts to become clearer. More than 2,000 homes have been destroyed in blazes across the country. The National Insurance Council estimates the damage bill so far is more than $700 million. The death toll from the bushfire crisis stands at 25. And incredibly, police say there have been isolated reports of looting with charges laid. As the recovery efforts get underway, emergency services have been swamped by donations of goods for people affected by the bushfires, to the point where they are actually turning them away. They say they just can't cope with the sheer volume of donated items, and managing the growing mountain of food and clothing is creating a second crisis.
For the south coast town of Moruya, these donations have been a blessing, but there's now too much of a good thing.
Obviously, there's a lot of help coming down. I just had a gentleman come through before. He's got 4 trucks waiting at Wollongong. And obviously we can't store it here. We've still got to run a business as well.
And they are obviously putting a call out for cash. The community is so grateful for the gratitude that's been shown.
The Red Cross have raised almost $35 million since New Year's Eve and is now offering $5,000 grants to those who have lost homes.
You guys raised $16.5.
Online crowdsourcing platforms have raised millions too, but the Competition and Consumer Commission is warning the public not all are legitimate. There are now too many scams to count.
Scammers phoning them up, SMSing them, relatives of people who've lost their lives. It's being reported that they've been using their names to set up websites. I mean, simply shocking behaviour.
The ACCC says when donating, trust who you know.
The best way to donate is through the established charities.
Scams aren't the only thing shocking communities.
I share the Premier's horror and the police is horror at somebody wanting to go and loot the home of an individual or a family who have potentially lost everything.
3 men have been charged with looting offences around Nowra and Moruya. Beck Winter's family returned to their Rosedale home after fires tore through the area. Their house was still standing but had been ransacked.
I couldn't believe it. My son he was ruined. His bike he got for Christmas was taken.
Their home has been looted twice now.
There are some bad eggs out there. So what would I say to him? I'd say, you're just the lowest of low.
A new trial testing the resolve of torched towns striving to recover. Daniel Doody, ABC News, Rosedale.
Firefighters along the New South Wales-Victoria border are racing against time to complete containment burns before conditions deteriorate later this week. There are still grave fears several fires could join to film a mega blaze that would stretch across hundreds of thousands of hectares.
Fighting fire with fire, cooler weather has given fireys a rare chance to go on the attack.
But it's one of the most important tools we have to help us stop the fire spreading on a larger scale.
A strike team from WA joined today's efforts, backburning grassland along the ridge of the Green Valley Fire, which has blackened more than 180,000 hectares near the New South Wales-Victoria border.
There's an enormous amount of work being done. We are taking advantage of these slightly calmer conditions. Smoke and air quality is a big challenge for us. These next couple of days are going to be a big challenge for us as the weather warms up again.
It's not known how many homes have been lost in these parts. Many are still too unsafe to enter. Jingellic and surrounding towns remain without power and communications, and still a darker threat looms. There's grave concern the Green Valley Fire could merge with 2 other fires either side of the border, creating a mega blaze that could burn for weeks.
We have serious potential for it to jump the river around the back of Corryong and join the Victorian fires.
At Jingellic's Bridge Hotel, locals are refusing to let the crisis run them dry.
We're going to hook up the pub to the generator so that at least we can have some beer flowing.
And beer was top of the mind for some Cairn River residents who were brought to nearby Orbost for supplies after being cut off for close to a week.
Mainly sort of milk and bread and so forth, and obviously beer. We haven't had any beer for a while.
In Victoria's far east, the naval evacuation continues in Mallacoota, where more than 300 people left this afternoon. For the firefighters based here near the New South Wales-Victorian border, today has brought a rare sense of calm. But that's unlikely to remain, with temperatures set to climb into the low 40s by Friday, raising the real prospect of yet another fire emergency. Ashley Aldridge, ABC News, Holbrook.
Small businesses in fire-affected communities could soon have access to cheap loans to help them stay afloat while their customers stay away. The federal government is looking at the measure as part of its wider relief package, but those on the ground are still struggling to get the help that they need.
At this time of year, business should be booming in this usually thriving holiday hotspot. Instead, it's a ghost town, bushfires keeping almost everyone away.
I need help to pay my daycare fees. I just need help to pay my staff so I can keep them employed and help to stay open.
The cafe owner and mum of four says she's lost at least $100,000 in the last month alone. Some help is available. Anyone who's been adversely affected can get immediate relief, $1,000 for adults and $400 for children. Some individuals and businesses can also access an allowance of up to $4,000 over 13 weeks. The quickest way to get it is by calling the Disaster Payments Hotline or by visiting a Centrelink office. But if that's not an option, 20 pop-up shops are being set up in fire-affected communities, the first in Moruya, Wingello and Bairnsdale.
And they've been instructed to get the money into people's pockets.
On top of that, there's state assistance, one-off payments for things like accommodation, food and clothing, and grants for eligible farms and businesses directly affected. But for those indirectly affected, it's not much help. Maddie Barry's Bermagui Cafe is still standing, but she's worried about the business long term.
When we do get trading, it will be at limited capacity while we kind of figure out where our business is going.
Recognising the gaps, the government's considering cheap loans already available in drought-affected towns.
And we're working as quickly as we can on that because that would then give $500,000 loans, interest-free, repayment-free for 2 years.
It's on top of the $2 billion relief fund announced yesterday. But despite these big commitments...
Where the bloody hell are you? I just feel alone. We all do here on the Bay.
The pleas from those who need help now only grow louder. Jane Norman, ABC News.
A volunteer firefighter killed at a blaze just before Christmas has been remembered as a selfless father who loved his brigade. The service for Andrew O'Dwyer was attended by hundreds of colleagues and the Prime Minister.
Andrew O'Dwyer's relatives say he found a second family in the RFS, and today hundreds of members joined them to lay him to rest. The 36-year-old was killed along with his colleague Jeffrey Keaton when a tree hit their truck late on December the 19th at the massive Greenwattle Creek blaze southwest of Sydney.
Although my heart is broken, you have made me very proud, and I'm very proud to be your dad. Love you forever, Dad.
His 19-month-old daughter Charlotte and wife Melissa accepted the Commissioner's commendation for extraordinary service and bravery, the service's highest accolade.
A strong leader and motivator within the brigade, a mentor and trainer, particularly to new members, but more seasoned members alike.
Mr. O'Dwyer was a talented photographer who used social media to show the world what it's like to be a firefighter. Those who worked closely with him say he was one of a kind.
The love he had for the fire brigade was as thick as the blood that ran through his veins.
His captain said he was selfless, the kind of man who would sacrifice his own life for others.
My friends, that is a rare and beautiful person.
The Prime Minister was among the mourners. From friends and colleagues, a show of strength at a time of extreme duress. Jamie McKinnell, ABC News, Sydney.
Almost 9,000 insurance claims worth $700 million have been made since the start of the horror fire season last September. But as the fires still burn, that number is set to climb rapidly.
Terry Gann was on the verge of completing the dream home he'd spent a decade building in northern New South Wales when a bushfire tore through in November and destroyed it.
Being so close is the hard thing.
He was not insured.
I had about a month to go to finish it, and I could have got my certificate of occupancy, which would have meant that I could have got my insurance on the place.
He's now working out how to build a new home. More than 2,000 properties have been destroyed by fire since September. 4 in 5 property owners believe they are underinsured, while others, like Terry, don't have any insurance. For those who do, they've submitted almost 9,000 insurance claims worth $700 million. Insurers met the Treasurer in Canberra today to assure him they're working quickly to process them all.
Having builders ready on hand to be able to go in and start the rebuild quickly, being able to access assessors from around the world if necessary to be able to get people on the ground quickly to do the assessments.
About 10% of the thousands of claims nationally have been settled.
We'll be working with the state governments and Andrew Colvin and his recovery agency to ensure that all the necessary and possible support is given to those communities that need it most.
The banks, which suffered a hit to their reputations in the wake of the Hayne Royal Commission, are also adding their support for bushfire-affected communities. In some cases, deferring loan payments, suspending interest charges and waiving fees. But for people like Terry, who's applying for financial assistance, the big question remains, how long will it take to pick up the pieces? Rachel Papazoni, ABC News.